Whew, it's a little balmy today for San Diego, a little hotter than usual. Hi there. I quit my day job 10 years ago, about first to second week, July 2012. I wish I knew the exact date, because you really could, if you wanted to, at least I could, and do. You could divide my life into two time periods, up to the point where I quit my day job, and then the 10 years since. Two distinct parts of pat time, if you want to call it that. Why did I quit my job? Why did I quit my online market research job? I'd been at it for 6 years. I moved out in 2009, August, to San Diego. I got a title demotion, but I kept the same salary, so it made sense. I want to try something new, move out to San Diego, beautiful weather, see the sights near the beach. It was a win-win. However, the next 3 years after I moved, things got progressively worse. It was sort of one of those sort of things where there was a merger, and then whenever someone from my department was fired or quit, they would not hire an appropriate replacement, or sometimes didn't hire a replacement at all. So I got to the point where I was overworked, underpaid, underappreciated. And of course, this is not an experience solitary to me. I'm sure a lot of you out there feel the same way. But that's what led me to say to HR, I'm miserable doing this. I'm overworked. I don't think I can go on much longer. And I'm going to be looking for something else to do. Thankfully, they said, cool, that's fine. They basically didn't want me to stay on being miserable, even though a miserable Pat would still be doing the work of like 1.5 to 2 regular employees. But, they wanted to push me out. And so we came to terms and I left. At the time I was, 4 years into doing YouTube, the Pat the Nes Punk stuff. Flea Market Madness was still fairly new. There's probably only a handful, maybe 6 or 7 Flea Market Madness episodes out by 2012. This is before the podcast. This is, a video game years had just, I believe, premiered earlier that year. We were probably filming the late 70s to early 80s then. Probably like the 80 episode was being filmed then. I was on a Retroware at the time. I was managing Retroware at the time. I managed the site from 2011-ish, late 10, early 11 to mid 2013 during its height. So that was basically just give you a background to where I was at. But it was important that I quit my job because it was killing me. It was very stressful, working 50 to 60 hour work weeks. If I was lucky, I'd get a 40 to 45 hour work week every now and then. But either way, they were client driven, hard deadline, stressful hours. There's a difference between a 40-hour work week that's light and fluffy versus a stressful 40-hour work week. So I had to get out. Ian at the time, I remember him saying I looked gray from like the stress and my health was bad. I wasn't wearing it at the time, but this is the sort of thing I'd wear into the office. I went up to my closet and I still had, my polos like this. Oh boy. Yeah, good old Nautica shirt. Remember Nautica? And then also have this one. What is this one? This is a Jeffrey Bean shirt. So, yeah. Which one's better? What do you think there? Both bad? So anyway, that was done. I moved on. It was a risky sort of proposition to quit. While I was making decent money, my condo mortgage was taking a chunk of it. Obviously, I was collecting. That was a habit I couldn't get rid of. I was going to swap meet every Sunday, sometimes every Saturday and Sunday. I was going there, so it was sort of like my therapy. I believe, looking back, I had to have an outlet at the time. Besides, YouTube and doing the NES Punk stuff and Flea Market Madness and Ask Frank and stuff with Retroware, I think I needed an outlet. I think the flea market provided that. The more I think about it, that might have been like the cost of therapy was going to the flea market and buying a bunch of old relics that sit behind me at the time. So, but I didn't have a lot of spare cash. I wasn't living check to check, but like I said, I was living in San Diego. I had a condo. I made a big purchase a couple years before, the NWC Gold Cart. It kind of fell on my lap. Got traded into Luna video games. wasn't destitute, wasn't making a ton of money, and I wasn't making anything really off of YouTube. I wasn't partnered on YouTube until, God, was that 2000, I think that was 14 or 15 when I got partnered. And then I was making a little bit of spending cash, basically the flea market cash, that was coming in through blip.tv, which is what a lot of us were on before we got monetized on YouTube. You would upload the blip into YouTube as well, and I was still, I think, uploading to game trailers is where a lot of people first discovered me, was really game trailers, not even YouTube. So with all that said, my job was killing me. I decided I gotta get out, and so I did. And then I remember sort of like the first 8 to 10 months was recovery. It was getting over the job sort of like stomping on me constantly every day and wanting to squish me into the ground. I felt insignificant. I did a lot more at my position than what I got paid for, and like I said, I wasn't appreciated. And I'll probably go into that more potentially if I talk about this on the CU podcast. So with that said, I went right into work and creative outlets. I had to write this down. I have no idea off of memory when I did certain NES Punk videos, no clue. So right after I quit my job, I went on a spree. Looks like I did one NES Punk video a month, which I did for part of my career when I had more time to do that. I did Commando. I did one of my favorite videos with Frank. One of my, probably the best thing I've ever done to me, track and field. I did Scoon. Love Scoon. It's goofy as hell. Baby Boomer. New Ghostbusters 2. The last time I had short hair ever, it started to grow out. It's like the last haircut I ever got for it being short was like around October of 2012. I have had long hair for 10 years to go along with quitting my job. And then in December, I did Spy Hunter. The Spy Hunter / Akari Warriors Christmas, where I'm shirtless for the first time on camera. That was one of the highlights of that one. I remember that period of just, like I said, this was like a recovery period, and I didn't know what I was gonna do at the time. I didn't know. I knew that I didn't want to go back to the corporate world because they spit me up, they chewed me up and spit me out, and that was a no-go. That wasn't gonna happen again. So I threw myself into my work, and I was hoping that I'd gain some sort of larger notoriety, and hopefully make a go at it, make a living off of it. And it was tough. I mean, you're getting views, but again, it's hard to get monetized. We're talking 2012 YouTube versus 2000, even 18, 19, 20 YouTube is totally different. It was like YouTube like 2.0. We're probably on 4.0 now. And I was sort of directionless. I had no idea, sort of where I wanted to go. But I had a small support group. I had a certain friend / employee of a game store that I talked to a lot. I had people from Retroware and friends I'd made, but it wasn't sure what was going to happen. I even had a close friend tell me before I quit. I think this was like June of 2012. Someone told me that they didn't think I should quit my day job, based just upon like how many views I was getting and how little money I was making. I mean, I was probably making at most at the time off of my videos. God, was I making between even like T-shirts and things like that? Where's those wristband that I had? Here, this is not. If I show any merch during this video, this monologue, this is not a call to buy this stuff, but this is just to help me in my mind partition out sort of what I've done. But you can't buy this anymore anyway. This is the NES Punk wristband that I wore. It's the one I've worn in my videos. This is the one that I'll always keep. I have a couple more laying around that are new, but one of the first pieces of merchandise I've ever done there. So just I printed up a few hundred of these. In 2013, I decided that I needed to do something else. Did a Kickstarter. Good old DVDs were hot. They're still hot 10 years ago. So I did my Kickstarter. I believe it was sometime in 2013. Or late 2012, I don't know. But 2013, I did the first Volume 1/2. Volume 1 and 2, 6 Hour Spectacular, Flea Market Madness, the legendary original. Never before released videos. Yeah, I did a couple of short videos that were never released on YouTube and bloopers and stuff like that. And then, of course, I would do, Volume 3 at some point, and then Volume 4. That's basically how I stayed afloat, besides unemployment insurance that lasted, I think I got that up to a year. Not a huge amount, just enough that wasn't even paying, like half my mortgage and rent. That wasn't going to get the job done. And of course, I was still working at Retroware, working for Retroware, with John and Lance and the fellas there doing the website, but that was unpaid. That was just we were hoping that was going to take off and become like Screw Attack. And like I said, it was big for a year or two, but never got to the heights we thought it would. God, it's a little bomby today. And then so in 2013, working on Retroware, I'm starting to step in more and do more responsibilities for the video game years. There's a few DVDs here. I didn't really start co-directing and producing it until the 82, definitely the 83 episode, 83, 89. Those are the ones I stepped in after the Kickstarter to help get it back on track and to finish it out there. So yeah, these were cool to work on. At the time, I was not making any money at all off video game years, but I was doing that just because it was a cool idea for a documentary series about video games, right? So I did that. And then something happened in the summer of 2013. A completely unnecessary podcast started with Ian. Do I have a pin here? Got to illustrate this. The CU podcast started. It's not going to focus on it. It's not going to focus. It is what it is. So yeah, I used to go into Luna Games because they were somewhat close, twice a month, and talk to Ian for sometimes a couple hours, 2-3 hours in between customers. We got along well. I had done some live streams on, God, I'm really going to age myself here. Ustream. I used to do some live streaming on Ustream, and then Ian suggested, why don't you do a podcast? Like, more officially a podcast. There were still young podcasts. So I suggested, why don't you do it with me? We're talking here. And so we started it. And that was definitely sort of a different trajectory of the career as well. At the time, the YouTube channel had about 80,000 subscribers, which was nothing to sniff at back then. The numbers were definitely different for inflation versus now, versus the number of people using YouTube versus the number of uploaders. So it meant a little bit more 80,000 back then versus now. But I remember we did it for fun at first, and then it got more serious, and then it really didn't start to take off for like well over a year. I want to say it was a year and a half. I want to say it was like late 2014. It started to get buzz. And we did it every other week. If we had done it every week, I firmly believe it would have been a lot more popular. We would have got ahead more because we were always ranked top 20 for new episodes on iTunes, always. And our competitors were mostly like the larger conglomerates like IGN, GameSpot, and who else was around back then that no longer exist, gaming websites. But I remember late 2014, or definitely by spring 2015, it started to gain traction there. And then it really, obviously, the retro VGS / Clico Chameleon in the fall of like 2015 or whenever it started to get more hot, that obviously helped. But I remember once we got like our first like advertiser around like a year and a half into 2 years, I believe that was like, wow, this is interesting. And it did help grow the channel. The channel definitely took off more with the podcast. The NES Punk videos were always seen and people liked them, but they were always like cult hits to me. If you look at some of the back library, they'll have hundreds of thousands of views potentially, but it took like years for them to get hundreds of thousands of views. They weren't getting hundreds of thousands of views in like a week or even a month or 2 months. It was like a long tail on those episodes. Like I think like something like WWF Games has hundreds of thousands of views, but it wasn't doing that immediately. If it was, I could have probably done them more often, and they would have kept the lights on for me there. But yeah, so you sort of saunter along there. But something else happened. Something else happened when we started. About the same time when we started the podcast, we had another idea at the time. We had done I thought of doing the NES Marathon in 2010 because it was the 25th anniversary of the NES, and there was literally nothing being done to celebrate it at the time that I saw. Nintendo wasn't doing anything for it. I didn't see really many like publications talk about it online, and so it was really strange. I mean, obviously that was the moniker of my character, so I was like, okay, let's do the NES Marathon. So we decided to do the guidebook. in 2013 with the hopes that it would be out for the 30th anniversary in 2015. Here's a is this a third printing? What print is this? It's a third printing. This is a return copy I have here. But yeah, we came up with the idea of this, and then we worked in tandem on this for like a year and a half until Ian could no longer commit to the project as much, and then I had to find other writers, and I then took it over to complete it from there. The scope of the book is something I could do a whole topic about, and Ian's, I think I said this semi-publicly, that it was bad in terms of like the scope of the book changed. Originally it was just going to be something where, shorter descriptions, not a lot of writing per game, like 80 to 100 words. Then I thought about it. I thought long and hard about, I want to say a year into it, and I said, this could be the only shot of doing something like this, and I want this to stand out, and I want this to be more academic, so I wanted to do more full, robust reviews of each game. At the time, that had not been done before, and I believe to this day there's no book covering every single game that's a full review of each NES game. This is it. This is the only one. Ian hated me at the time for it. I could see why, because he had to go back and rewrite a bunch and added more writing. But yeah, I figured, why not go for broke? Why not? Why not? I don't like to do cash-ins. Like cheap sort of cash-ins. I don't do it for I didn't do it for my DVDs. I didn't do it for video game years. I put my all into it. Why not for the book? So I remember when I was doing the Kickstarter. We're now in like 2015. The fall was a Kickstarter. It launched right before that year's NES Marathon. That would have been the 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, the 6th annual NES Marathon. And I was not scared, but I didn't know how it was going to go. At that point, I put in 2.5 years of time into the book. I was spending money on writers to help complete it. I was burnt out from working on it. And I'll never forget, I felt that, I guess, relief, joy, when we broke through we broke through collectively, thanks to you. We broke through the goal in I think it was like an hour. It was like 20,000, I think, to print it. I think that was the goal. I mean, it was going to get printed no matter what. I was going to do it. But I had no idea how it would sell, because there hadn't been a book done like this with, full color screenshots and cart images and information about every single game and a full review and a star rating and all that. So when it reached that point where it hit the goal that quick, I was like, oh, okay, this could be good. And then it exceeded all my expectations from that point. It exceeded them. And yeah, that was life-changing. I can't even try to underplay it. It was life-changing, the book. I didn't know there'd be that much interest in it. I didn't know it would do that well. It basically got me the down payment eventually for Castle Country here. Which, I mean, I didn't use it right away, but that money went towards the house there. So I'm glad people liked it, and I guess it established me as some sort of historian at that point. I mean, video game years probably did to an extent, since my fingerprints were all over those last 7 or so episodes. But the book sort of helped a lot, and I never set out to do a book like this. Nonfiction was usually not something I enjoyed. Like, I enjoy writing fiction a lot better, the NES Punk stuff. But it was cool. It's cool, and I'm obviously decent at project managing and doing it. So thank you for this. This was life-changing, for sure. And then, of course, I said to myself at the time, since it was such a drain on my life, I remember my ex hated me for working on the book because like I had to write and work on it even on weekends when she wanted to go out just to complete it. I mean, the thing was, it was supposed to come out March of 16. It was like, I think it was 7-8 months past date. It came out October, I believe, of 2016, something like that. So it is what it is. It came out. People got their books. They were happy. And then I decided, hey, why not do another book? I didn't go into it right away. I thought about it, but why not do the follow-up, since, I created, I guess, a standard in some degrees for doing these, and why not keep it up for another one? And so I started working on this with an editor by my side, Ashton, at the time. And this is an even better book I'm writing a lot less for it. I wasn't as burnt out writing it. And so there you go. There was the second book there. And there'll be a third one eventually. So again, thank you for that. Cool stuff, huh? Yeah. And along the way, I started going to more conventions. I had gone to probably 6 to 8 between 2009 and 12 before I quit my day job. I'd gone to some MagFests. I'd gone to SGC. My first panel was at SGC 2010. That's where I met James Rolfe. We quickly became friends there. I went to Comic-Cons, even though they're local, and did interviews. I did the goofy stuff. James appears in some of those. And I remember he used to do his little Spike TV sets there. And so I'd gone to some events. But then when I started getting invited to them more and more to do panels, that was interesting. I think I brought up on a podcast a few weeks ago, the first one that ever paid my way entirely, and basically said we are getting requests for you specifically. Was Portland Retro Gaming Expo 2011. I believe, I'm not trying to humble brag, but I believe this is factual. I was the first guest they ever flew out and paid my way as a YouTube guest and did all that from the interwebs. And so that was pretty cool. I remember I edited the Mr. Gimmick video in 24 hours before it came out to make sure I had something totally special. I mean, seriously, I was up almost all night completing it. Not an easy edit. And it was at the Doubletree Hotel. It was beneath the parking garage. It was sweltering. It was 90 degrees inside that little cramped place. And I'm dripping during the panel. Just tons of sweat. Much more than I'm sweating right now. It's a little balmy. Right now. Like I said, I'm very grateful for that. And that along, I believe, that sort of exposure, putting myself out there, meeting everyone in the community and commiserating, that really, that might have helped me mentally as well, because I believe that after I quit my day job, I did that more and more. I had more time to do that. Before I had to take off of work and schedule it and see if they can give me off, let me take off. So that was an important sort of time as well for me. So where am I at the timeline right now? 2016, 17. We're rolling into Castle Country. The move took a lot out of me, a lot, but it was obviously worth it for the extra space, the studio space here. With Ian to record and to keep my games sort of sequestered from the rest of the house and the collection. And I still have way too much. I was still going to the flea market a lot. That slowed down when I completed the first book. I had to stop going to the flea market. So my flea market madness footage ends regularly in 2016 because I just had to finish the book. But there's less deals anyway happening about that time. But other things happened when I moved. Other opportunities started to appear. Stuff like, executive producing Not For Resale, the video game store documentary directed by Kevin James. It got to this weird point that people, I guess, either because of the books or the Video Game Year series or a combination thereof, the podcast, I started to get these opportunities that I never had before. And I think Ian would agree that something happened where I think people in maybe not necessarily the industry itself, but people that were either devs or other influencers started acknowledging us or knowing that we existed. And so, when you came to someone and said, hey, I want to help out with something like this, it wasn't just hey, some random dude. At that point, there was some sort of cachet that had been built up over the past 8-9 years of me being online. So stuff like that and other little things I'm probably forgetting happened. And then with stuff like the podcast, the ups and downs in terms of some people trying to be negative against us, but mostly positive. And then of course another prop. This is my last prop. Enough props I got here. This is an Amico game. I didn't think setting out when we first started the podcast that it would be sort of a news-worthy podcast where we would either break news or sort of. I didn't think we'd be quote unquote influencers when it came to people wanting to hear our take on stuff happening in the retro gaming community. And then obviously it happened with the Chameleon, because that we had never seen something like that before. But even talking about like stuff like NES Classics and Super Nintendo Mini and other releases coming out, and obviously stuff like the Amico, it definitely was eye-opening, because we started doing the podcast just as we didn't know what we were doing. We're just going to talk about whatever, and then it sort of morphed from there. And then, of course, the Not So Common podcast came and went. I did that for, 2 to 3 years. And then once the CU podcast went weekly, I had to give it up. I couldn't do both podcasts. So fast forward, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Probably the wrong use of that. Do I regret leaving my job? Do I regret leaving this? Do I regret this? No. I regret not quitting sooner. I should have quit sooner. Now, like I said, I didn't have a ton of money, but looking back, I probably should have done it sooner. Had I done it sooner, who knows? I don't want to try to look back and guess about how my life could have gone if I'd quit in, say, 2010 versus 2012. But I'm just happy I did. I'm happy I just took the plunge and decided to do it. And whether or not you should, if you feel like your life's in a rut, I'm not telling you to do it or not. That's every individual's sort of circumstance and how you feel comfortable with things. But I couldn't continue on that much longer in the corporate world. I will never be working in a cubicle again. I can gladly say that. That is not going to be me, for sure. Look at my list of things. I definitely want to thank, besides all you all that have supported me for the past, 14 years, all the friends I've made, all the friends that I've made. My closest friends are people from the, YouTube community. Brought up James Rolfe before, Norm Caruso, gaming historian, Pixel Dan, John and Lance from RetroWare, Andre Meadows, Black Nerd Comedy. If I'm leaving anyone out, I apologize. Just the top of my head. These are people that I've connected to more so than a lot of other people locally. It's very difficult for me to make new friends in general, but these are now people that I miss so much because I don't get to see them because they live across the country. Gerard, Alex Fasciani. These are people that I wish were local that I could hang out with. And if it wasn't for the internet and a silly NES Punk video series and Flea Market Madness and a podcast, I wouldn't have made these friends. And obviously Ian. Well, Ian was more of a local friend before the podcast. When I forced him to do my Caltron 6-in-1 video, by that point he was stuck with me. By that point we were stuck with each other. But yeah, all the people at conventions that I talked to, and now God, I try to count how many conventions I've gone to the past 12 years. I don't know what it is. It could be 60, 80, 90, 100. I have no idea what it is. I'm trying to average it out in my head. It could be 7 a year, 6 a year average. But it's amazing because the same people remember me, and I meet a lot of people. I see a lot of faces. I remember a lot of the faces. I don't usually remember names easily, but I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember you. You're the kid that was 10 years old haggling me at NES games. Now you're 18 years old. Now you're 20. Having your own giant NES collection. That's someone from PRG, for example. Seeing the same vendors year after year and getting to know them. And again, I forget names. I apologize. My brain's wired a certain way. It's hard for me to remember names, but I remember faces and personalities. So stuff like that is something I cherish. Because again, if it wasn't for this dumb YouTube channel and all of you helping me maintain this, it would be all for naught, and I would still be underappreciated and underpaid in a dumb cubicle somewhere or at home, which basically could have been a cubicle working at home. It felt like a cubicle. I used to work in my bedroom. Not a good idea, by the way. If you work from home, you really want to have a separate office spaces if you can. Having it in your bedroom, it's it's always there with you. It's always around your neck, your job. There's something to be said for having a different workspace that you could sort of leave behind. So I'm rambling, but what's my last note here? The future. still doing the podcast. NES Punk stuff still going for a bit. Won't be going another 14 years, but you know, it's not done yet. Flea Market Madness, we'll still be doing a little bit. That'll be finishing up though more sooner than later. No more Ask Frank, so I could probably do an update once a year on Ask Frank. And the podcast hits 10 years next year, which is significant as well. I do have a long-term project I can't talk about right now. I will be writing a screenplay. That's something I can talk about. We'll tell you what it's about. Whether or not it gets made, I don't know. And we'll see what else is in store for me. Again, but this is stuff that wouldn't have happened had I not given up these beautiful, beautiful shirts, right? So, thanks everyone. Am I over a half hour? Yeah, thanks everyone for listening to me. I originally wasn't going to do a video like this, but I felt, hey, if you think it's nice, I don't know, you get something out of it, you think I'm crazy. How's the hair, by the way? Not looking too bad. There you have it. Who wants a Jeffrey Bean and Nautica shirt? I have more. I threw out a lot or gave away a bunch, but I still have more. Maybe I should put them on eBay. Pat's old work shirts. I should do that. Here's to another 10 years, right? We'll see where I'm at. I'll probably have entirely white hair by then. All right, everyone. Where's my wristband? Maybe I should put it on here. 10 years ago, huh? Oh, boy. There we go. Oh, boy, that's dusty, but it feels good. All right, everyone. Take care.